A lot of IEMs gets released on the market all the time. Most of them gets forgotten almost immediately, and only very few stay competitive and has any kind of longevity at all. However, even fewer of them can say that it completely changes the price bracket or dominates a certain price bracket. And though as rare as that can be, I'm happy to announce today that we have one of those IEMs. Hey friends, Tim here, welcome back to my video on Giz Audio, and today we have the review of the Aful Performer5, or P5 for short, because I don't want to say Performer5 10,000 times throughout the length of this video. The P5 is an amazing IEM that comes in at $220, and at this price point, it completely destroys everything else that lives around it. The Yume Midnight, the Yume 2, the Kato, and to an extent, the Timeless, the Hook X as well. Now, before we get into any comparisons, let's jump into the sound signatures, sound breakdown first. So the sound signature of the P5 could be described as neutral with a bass boost, and the tuning balance on this is pretty much near excellent. It has a lot of bass, slightly focused on the sub bass, but the mid bass is still prominent enough that each hits and slam don't feel like they're muddied or they're marred in any way, because if you have a signature that has way too much sub bass in comparison to mid bass, the hit starts to become a little bit blunt. In the case of the Performer5, the hits and slam are still distinct. The bass and the lower mid separation is also really nice. Bass doesn't start rising until about 250 Hz or so, making the bass and the lower mid range comes across very clean, very well controlled, while at the same time not way too tucked like you get with the variations or the Truth Ear Zero. So male vocals and instruments that lives in this range still comes across with that natural heft, if you will, without any sense of warmth or mud. The upper mid range and treble area are also really well done, especially in the treble area. If you see here, the treble extension is fantastic, and also the extension quality is smooth. There's no big peaks, there's no big dips. The treble quality here is something that you normally see in higher price IEMs. You don't see this at all under $200 or even under $300. And the benefit of having really smooth and well extended treble is that the timbre of each instrument, especially female vocals or instrument that lives in the higher ranges, comes across so natural and fully extended. They don't feel cut off, closed off in any way. Much more natural than IEMs that doesn't have good extension or IEMs that doesn't have the smoothest extension. And the tonal balance of the Performer5 is also near excellent. What would make it excellent is if they tone down the sub bass just a little bit, but as it stands right now, it's already ahead of the competition within the same price point, so I have nothing to complain here at all. I guess if I were to really nitpick the tuning of the Performer5, besides the sub bass being slightly bit too much, I would say that the upper mid range is slightly bit uneven. But all in all, those are again nitpicks at best. The rest of the tuning is still much better than the competition. Next, let's talk about technical performance. Bring up my scale right here. The Performer5 lands almost to the Timeless. Yes, it's a really well resolving IEM, especially for the price. The biggest hindrance to its tech performance is going to be in the imaging department. It's not the cleanest it can be. I feel like it could be a little bit cleaner. Then I would move the tech grade a little bit higher. But all in all, in comparison to the rest of the IEMs within the same price bracket, the Performer5 is still above average. Now for the comparison segment, I'm going to compare the Performer5 to two different price bracket IEMs, the same price brackets, so the Yume Midnight, the Timeless, the Kato, but I'm going to compare it in a more general sense, not one per one, and also going to be comparing it to more expensive IEMs to find out where the Performer5 actually fits in terms of performance overall. In comparison to the Yume Midnight, the Kato, and the Timeless, the Performer5 just comes across as a better tuned IEM altogether, thus making it sound much more expensive or high quality than all of those IEMs that I just mentioned. The timbre quality is just noticeably better. Everything sounds more natural on the Performer5 than the other IEMs. The tonal balance is also better on the Performer5 as well. Detail-wise, I would say it's better than the Midnight and the Kato, while falls slightly bit short of the Timeless. Now for the comparison with more expensive IEMs, I actually tested out the Performer5 against a lot of IEMs that are $250 and plus that I considered are good, and I find that the Performer5 beats pretty much every IEM under $300 as well. It's better than the Titanium Oxygen, the Soft Air's Volume, and also the Hook X. Now, where the Performer 5 starts to sound more average in price to performance is gonna be with the Blessing 2 Dust. The Blessing 2 Dust tuning and timbre is pretty much on par with the Performer 5. The one thing that the Dust does better is in the imaging and overall technical performance. The Dust is noticeably cleaner and more well separated than the Performer 5. Now, the Performer 5 does have one thing over the Dust, and that is treble extension. Of course, the Performer 5 is just better done there altogether. So in comparison to the Blessing 2 Dust, the Performer 5 kind of trade blows. They're pretty much in the same playing field here, which to me puts the Performer 5's actual price to performance value at around $300 to $500. Now you might be wondering, Timmy, where did you come up with $300 to $500? Well, the $500 comes from the fact that it is not as good as the Moondrop variation that sits at $520. Is also not as good as the Thea Audio Oracle as well, that sits at $540. Hence, the appropriate price bracket for the Performer 5 is $300 to $500. But you're only getting this for $220, way below valuation. And with all of that being said, the Aful Performer 5 gets a big green 2 thumbs up for me. It is a phenomenal IEM, and for the price, a big steal, and I predict that it will be a dominating IEM in the price bracket for quite a number of months to come. I don't dare to say years because the IEM market moves so fast, but in the next few months to come, I would say the Performer 5 sits firmly at the number 1 spot. And with all that being said, before we end this video, I'd like to thank my Patreon supporters. We have Kai, we have Chadwick, Suniroll, Norm, and Big Boy Mason. Thank you so much for the support of the channel. If you guys want to support yourself, link to Patreon is down below. Lots of good perks there. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Bye.